And hard and you aiming for the seven figures. Hear from the experts who know how to deliver success stories, plenty advice. Time for you to rise. REI Tribe, yeah. Real estate agents to investors. All my entrepreneurs, time for you to check this. Yoann Dorat, he's getting it started, man. From running businesses to digital marketing. Hey, REI Tribe. REI Tribe. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this new episode of the REI Tribe podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Juan Nicasio, Mr. Acquisition. Juan is a real estate sales coach and also a crypto expert. So today, we're going to deep dive on different topics. Juan, welcome, man.
No, man, I really appreciate you inviting us to this podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love to share, knowledge. I'd love to share experience and bring value to the marketplace. So this is dope. I appreciate you.
For sure. And I know that we're going to drop a lot of value today for the audience. But, before we get started, can you tell us a little bit more about, your background? How did you get started in real estate?
Yeah, I mean, almost by accident, even though I don't believe in accidents. I used to be a licensed insurance agent. I used to sell mainly health insurance throughout Florida. And I had worked for corporate for some time. It was a specific company out of Sunrise, Florida. And then I branched out to build my own brokerage. And I built that brokerage to over 400 retaining clients, recurring clients. So it was a really great business. It was 10 years of experience and relationship building, all telephonic sales. Never really met any of my clients. I think maybe I would say maybe 5% out of the 400 I've met, right? And so I've always had this knack for sales, right, over the phone.
That's very interesting. Yeah. That's a key thing here, because for a lot of people, I think that might be listening to us, and even me, like when I started my career in sales, face to face, and then transitioning on the phone was something a little bit challenging. It takes some adaptation and a lot of repetition to become very good at it. So it's very interesting to know that you actually started your career right out of the gate on the phone.
Yeah. And so the business had major change due to policy, like government policy.
Okay.
And so the business went from, well over six figures a year, which at the time was great, right? Because it was pretty passive.
Sure.
To like less than five figures.
Oh, wow.
It was bad.
So walk us through like what your business was looking like back in the day. Did you have a team working with you, or it was only you doing sales?
This guy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So solo entrepreneur doing 6 figure a year, and like all of a sudden policies change and basically they pull the carpet.
Yeah, they pulled the rug.
Wow.
They pulled the rug, and it was luckily it was a transition of a year.
Okay.
And so I was able to see where it was going. So it allowed me to do an exit plan, right? So I knew that I had like 1 year left to produce, maybe not as high as I was making, but it allowed me to go ahead and say, okay, well, I got to find something else to do. In that time, I had met my ex-partner who invited me to like a men's group. And he was like, dude, you shared your story, because we were sharing stories. It was like entrepreneurs and people that, the men that provide for the family. It was that kind of group. And so he says, man, maybe I can talk to you a little bit about what I do on the side. I work at this logistics company, but on the side, what I do is I flip houses, right? Okay. I'm like, man, that sounds interesting. You flip houses? I don't know anything about real estate at all. I'm an insurance guy. That's all I know. The most that I knew about real estate, dude, is go on Zillow. You look on Zillow, you see some pricing, you see some houses, and that's it. That's all I knew. And HGTV. That's it.
For sure.
And so he's like, yeah, I do some house flipping, and I could probably, use you. We can partner up, and maybe you can make some of these calls. And I'm like, all right, well, what does that look like? So he kind of explains a little bit about what it entails, but I didn't know that it was like wholesaling. So I had no idea that it was real estate wholesaling.
So you thought it was flipping? You thought it was actually closing, rehabbing, and selling the properties, but it was actually wholesaling.
Yeah. So he took me from which I think it was the best way to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because there was not much of a thought process, and it also gave me the confidence that this gentleman could put the deal on the contract, buy it, and we can make some money.
You thought you had like the capital and everything to back up your offers, right?
Yeah. Okay. So that helps, right? Because most of what happens in business is mainly mental. I want to say 90% of it is all mental.
Oh, for sure.
And so I didn't have that roadblock. Now, was it difficult? It was difficult because I don't know certain things. I don't know ARV. I don't know repairs. I don't know what value. I don't know what percentages are. I don't know how low I'm supposed to get these properties or what kind of negotiation has to happen. But it was literally like being paid to learn.
Okay.
Right. Obviously, I worked for free for a while, dude. Like my first deal, it took me 3 months with this old list that he had on paper. It was no CRM. There was no pay-per-click. There was no mail. There was nothing. It was just this old data.
So you're telling me that even though you had this experience at the time, you were already like an expert in sales, you knew how to close on the phone.
Right.
But transitioning to real estate, it was actually something completely different. It wasn't like, it took some time to really get used to it, right?
Yeah, because the art of the sale was still there. Like being able to communicate with people, making people trust you, being respectful, being on time. If there's somebody tells you call me at 5:00, you called at 5:00. You did your follow-ups the right way. That is inherent in a salesperson that ever does any kind of sales, right? And so that framework always existed. So I'm always great at making the calls. I was great at making communication. I was great at building rapport. But when it came down to closing the deal, that was difficult because those are the little technical things that you need to understand. Like anybody can call a homeowner and say, what do you want? Oh, I want 300. Oh, Zillow says it's worth 290. Okay, give me 290. You as a new guy, you're like, I stole it, right? Because I got $10,000 off the property. But in reality, there was so much more that goes into it. So
the framework is still the same. Doesn't matter if you're like working at a car dealership or in real estate or in insurance like you did. But still, you need to understand the product that you're selling, because otherwise you're going to be stuck at like 90% of the process, but you won't be able to close on.
Yeah, and that's what that's why I think it took me that long, because I would make offers and then I would tell my my partner, hey, I got this deal. I got this seller that wants this much for the property. So then he would look it up and he will run. He's like, nah, man, that's not a good deal. You have to go back at this price. I'm like, are you kidding me? Right. So it's like they want 100. I got to go back at 40. It's just like, oh man, that person's going to, hang up the phone on me, because in insurance, it was different. Insurance is like, hey, how old are you? What kind of policies do you want? What kind of deductibles do you want? Okay. The system spits out this price. Take it or leave it. Right.
Yeah. So you mean that in insurance, you don't have this kind of like conflicting relationship that you can have sometimes in a real estate negotiation, where the seller is at this price and you need to come back at this price, and sometimes even come back and renegotiate later on. So
because
you don't have any of that.
The price is subjective to what the seller feels is the value of as is or what have you of their property, or sentimental or whatever.
There might be some emotions attached to it as well that you don't have in the insurance.
Correct. In insurance, it's like, well, if you're 35 years old and you're male and you live in Broward County and you don't smoke, this is the price. Oh, you don't like that price? Well, you need to up your deductible and then I can make your price cheaper. And this is what the price is. Versus, because it's an algorithm.
Yeah.
It spits it out and that's it. Versus dealing with a homeowner, there's an arbitrary number that you're trying to figure out where it makes sense for both parties to come to common ground. And that's the difficult part. I call it bridging the gap. Yeah.
Let me ask you something before we deep dive on, your journey as a real estate investor and making those first phone calls. You were telling me that, you had this insurance business that was very successful, and then you hit 6 figures, and then all of a sudden the regulation changed and your business basically fall apart. Is it something that stick to you to this day? Like, doesn't matter what kind of businesses you build, do you still think like nothing is infinite in life? Even though I'm at the top today, I might fall down and then build back up again.
Yes, and I come from very humble beginnings. So for me to start fresh in any industry, I'm okay with. right? Because I come from the bottom. So everything I do is build up with more experience. So I can scale faster in whatever my new endeavor is. But yes, I do fear that, like, right now this market is a little different. And so it's not as high volume as I'm accustomed to, because we have to understand market cycles. But it's okay because
you do have the skill set now. So even if you had to build back from the bottom again, you already have the skill set to do so.
Absolutely. I think that if you can master this type of sale, because this type of sale embodies a lot of different dynamics. It's a lot of human emotions. Not only human emotions from the person you're doing business with, call it seller, but you also have, especially if you're doing wholesaling, you have so many intermediates that you have to control their emotions also. People that work at the title company, maybe they showed up to work, they had a car accident, they don't feel good, they don't want to run your title work for that day, whatever, right? They don't want to call the city, they don't want to do any of that. You're dealing with a buyer. The buyer's emotional because he's putting a good amount of money down for this particular property. He doesn't want to lose a deposit. He doesn't want to make a mistake. You're dealing with those emotions, right? You're dealing with, county workers. You're dealing with attorneys. I think in every transaction, my man, I did the count. I took a HUD and I did the count of every line item. There's over 27 people that get fed in every single transaction.
So it means that there is a lot of things that can mess up on an entire transaction. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So you have to kind of like control this whole system.
And so that's why I say, like, if you can master that, you can sell pretty much anything.
Absolutely. And I think even more than, just business, I think mastering sales is something that is going to be useful in your everyday life, because everything is a negotiation. Everything is sales. I mean, like you should see my 8-year-old daughter. She's selling all the time, and everything is a negotiation. So it's really, I think it's a skill set that serves just as much in your personal life as it would in your business.
Oh, absolutely. I use sales everywhere that I go. Obviously, I have a wife and 3 kids, all women, in my house. So I'm always in constant negotiation. From the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I'm negotiating something, right? Even on my way here to this podcast, I had to negotiate a couple things, right? And so it definitely is a skill set that everyone should master, because if you remove the word sales, because people are intimidated by that word. Oh, I don't like salesy people. I don't like salesmen.
Might have like a negative connotation sometimes. I don't know exactly where it's coming from. I don't know if it's like those old methods of, guerrilla marketing, and people have kind of like assimilated sales to all of that and telemarketing. But yeah, I don't know for what reason it became such a negative connotation.
I mean, because of that, right? But because everything in life is about perspective and how you view things. I read something today that says life is like a mirror, and it just depends on, how you see things in the reflection or something along those lines. If you remove the word sales and you just say, I'm going to be a communication specialist, it's a different thing, right? Because sales is communication.
Sure.
And again, you mentioned that you need it in life. So in life, you need to communicate with other humans, whether it be parents, family members, people you don't know, business. Even when I go to the supermarket, I'm negotiating.
Yeah,
for sure. You sure you don't have a coupon for that milk? For that wine? Isn't it $1 off? Oh, let me see what I can do for you. Ooh, they come out and they scan it, but it's a negotiation. It's a conversation to be had. Saying good morning is a form of sales, right? If I see somebody, that needs help crossing the street, or an older lady, hey, may I help you? Oh, you're the sweetest. Here's $1, right? Things like that happen. And it's all communication. And so if you can be a master of communication, then you can master business.
All right. Makes sense. So going back to, your beginnings in a real estate. So you told me that you started to make those phone calls for this business partner that you found. Let me ask you, how long did it take you to find this first deal?
3 months.
3 months?
Yeah, 3 months. And I would never forget the house. It was a little wood frame house in Liberty City, Florida. If whoever knows Liberty City.
Oh, wow.
The good thing is, right, going back to telephonic sales, I never met the seller. I never saw the house.
So you actually send your partner to the hood to go take some picture and do everything.
Yeah, he took some photos of the property. We had our security guard staying there. So we bought the property with a security person to guard the house. That's how good that area is.
Wow.
And no, we found the buyer like literally probably like the next day.
Okay.
And we put it on the contract. We took it all the way. And because the way that he pitched me was the sales pitch that my partner gave me was, hey, how would you like to make $5,000 on each deal that we do? For me, $5,000 at that moment was a lot of money for one deal, right? Because it would take me to do like about 10 to 20 deals in insurance to make the 5K. So I had a bunch of leads and I had to close a bunch of deals every single month.
So you could see the scale.
So that I can see. And so I'm like, one deal, $5,000, he got me hooked. And then 3 months later, I'm like, bro, this is BS. We got the deal done. And he gave me a check for $5,000. It's like, okay.
So you made 5K on this deal. What was like the total assignment fee?
It was 15.
15.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so where did you go from there? Like, how did you end up partnering up with this guy?
So people, once they see the vision or once they see that it's real, that's when you have like that wake up moment, and it's a belief system. Basically what happens, you rewire your mind now, and you're like, if I did it once, I can do it again.
So until you got this first check in your hands, you were like, maybe, but like you're not totally convinced. But once you touch this first check, it was like, no, I'm all in.
Yeah. And so that happened. Then we did it again about a month and a half after we did it again. And I'm like, I think we're onto something, because I come from call centers. I come from, brokerage, telephonic sales, a lot of leads. We got something here. So what we're going to do is, I told him, we're going to take this thing serious, dude. Like, let's go all in and let's make sure that we make this our full-time business in 6 months.
Because your partner still had another job on, it was a side gig for him to do wholesaling, right?
Right, because he only had so much bandwidth, right? Like wife, kids, the whole thing. So steady employment, 401k, the whole thing. Like, you're not really gonna mess that up for 1 or 2 wholesale deals and not be able to handle the bandwidth, because obviously there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to real estate. I said, all right, well, we're gonna go force on it, you and I. I do acquisitions, and you just go find the buyers. So we divided and conquered right from the very, very beginning. And man, we were off to the races. So what we did is, instead of taking the cash, we would invest in marketing. And so then we have more phone calls, started closing more deals, and that thing snowballed. By the 6th month, right before the 6th month, he left his corporate job, and then we made it all official, and we just ran. Yeah.
That's cool. So to recap a little bit of all of that, we just say, like, basically it took you 3 months to do your first deal. Yeah. But then, even though like it takes sometimes 3 months for you, I know some people that took even a year to get their first deal. But after that, it kind of like became shorter. After that, it only take a month and a half to get your second deal and really start to build a business that was more recurring. Yeah. But for the first 6 months, you reinvested every money that you were making, you reinvested it back into the business.
Yeah, because it was the only way to have the volume that we needed in order for us to be like full-time. This is our business. You know what I mean? Otherwise, we would still probably be working two jobs.
For sure. And I think that's something that sometimes, I'm having a lot of conversation every day with wholesalers about marketing. And that's one of the things that people don't think about sometimes, is that you need to reinvest the money that you're making into marketing, because at the end of the day, real estate wholesaling is marketing and sales. If you don't spend money in marketing, you're not making any sales. It's pretty simple, right? Yeah. And I mean, you're the living proof of that, because the first 6 months of activity, you had to reinvest. And it was probably hard at the beginning to like separate yourself from this first check that you worked so hard to get, to reinvesting in. There is a lot of faith to do that,
Yeah, especially when deals are not like, well, you put it on the contract and the next day you have a check in your hand, right? Like these this is a process of 30 to 45 days before you see that action, right, come into...
Oh, for sure. I think the average cash conversion cycle on the wholesaling is like 90 days. So it's it's not as long as a flip, but it's still pretty long.
It's pretty long. Mm-hmm. It's pretty long. And so you have to start doing the volume in order for you to have the consistency. So in order to do the volume, well, then you need to speak to more people, right? And so that was the mindset behind all of that. It was just a necessary thing. We used to do more than just like, oh, well, let's just do some marketing. Like we used to do the guerrilla advertising. We would go out every Friday and put bandit signs up. We buy houses, we buy houses, we buy houses, we buy all over the hood. So it'd be Friday night, dressed in all black, in a beat up like Honda Accord, tinted windows, and we would go out every Friday. Why? Because typically the city wouldn't take them down until Monday. But by that time, I've already received the X amount of calls that I needed, along with paid marketing that we did as well. So we were doing a combination of that just to grind it out and make this work. So if you really want it, well, you got to get out there and do it. There's really no excuse.
For sure. I remember those olden days of the bandit sign. We used to do that with my team in Detroit, and it was exactly the same thing. The first probably like 1,000 bandit sign, I did it myself, and I had my assistant with me was driving, and then we would do that at night in the evening. He would open the door, we would run outside, put it, and then run back in the car. And then we figure out that by buying some kind of perch, we would put it high enough that the city people couldn't take it out. So it would last, 7 days instead of just lasting a few days.
Yeah, we had one of those sticks. Yeah. Go that long and just slap it on there. But
it wasn't efficient, but it was interesting.
But this is the time before, because these folks that are coming into the business now, they're so blessed with PropStream and Privy.
They have access to everything.
Access to so much data right at their fingertips for very minimal cost. Very minimal. Because back in the day, for us to go ahead and pull a list like that and do it, first of all, some of the technologies didn't even exist, right? You're not text messaging 1,000 people a day. That wasn't happening because there was no software for that. For call dialing, you had either a call center or you had some very expensive, equipment to do that, plus skip tracing. It was just so much to kind of get that list back in the day. We're talking about almost 10 years. A lot has changed in 10 years. So you had to go out and do the traditional stuff, direct mail, which was very, very expensive, and you had to be mega consistent. Or you're knocking on doors. And so we did that.
For sure. I think we talked about that on another podcast where I was a guest this time. And I remember I started my career in France. So it was totally different country, totally different rules. And I was saying exactly the same thing about PropStream and all this way that we have now to market. Everything is so easy. When I started my career, I had to actually have one of my employee in the title company back in the day, because in France, only the title company has a software that allow you to get this data. And so I had one of my employee that has a small desk in a corner of the title company, and all day long was on their software pulling data. And then he would come back to the office. We would print 1,000 mailers that we would have to, handcraft and send every day. And we would do that for days and days. And it would take months for, the mailers to come back and get the deal. So we're really living in an interesting era now because we have access to all of that. Marketing has never been as easy as it is now.
It is so accessible. But thank God for the United States of America, because not in every country we can do that. For example, sure. I've tried to do this in Canada. And it doesn't work. It doesn't translate as well. Yeah. I was well, that's my next door neighbor. I mean, how difficult can it be? It's nope, that doesn't work.
That's why most wholesalers in Canada actually wholesale here in the US now.
Right. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a marketing and sales organization, and that's what wholesaling is until you transition into, doing other stuff in real estate.
For sure. So after 6 months, you told me about you and your partner created a structure and everything. So does it mean that the first 6 months were just basically a handshake basis? You were just doing JV. It's we work together, but we don't have really an agreement. And when the check comes, we split it in half or whatever.
Very simple handshake type of ordeal. And that was it.
Don't you feel sometimes that people getting started now, I don't know if it's because of YouTube University or whatever, but they kind of overcomplicate things. Like they want the latest software, they want like everything,
All the
the
best
LLC and everything right out of the gate, where honestly, you should go look for a deal first, and then after you've done a few deals, think about all of that,
I would definitely, simplify it to my cell phone and a computer.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it. And I don't even, like me personally, I mean, at this stage where I'm at now, I don't even comp on like PropStream, Privy, MLS. I use Zillow, dude. Like,
me too,
I use
dude.
Zillow,
I love
and
Zillow.
call it a day. You know what I mean? My job is to do something different in the call. So, like, for those that don't understand wholesaling or real estate and stuff like that, what I focus on is direct to homeowner sales. Direct to homeowner. So I'm not calling a broker, I'm not calling an agent, I'm not calling a wholesaler, I'm not calling anybody but the homeowner direct. So my job is to problem solve, because the only reason someone's going to sell you a property for pennies on the dollar is because they have some type of concern, issue, problem that they need solved. Otherwise, they would just do the traditional stuff, put it on the market, get top dollar, and sell it to another family themselves. So because of the targeting marketing that we do, we know that they're in distress. So my job is different, right? My job is to figure out what is the problem, why are you in this problem, and what would solve the problem.
It's more about the individual than really the property, right? It's finding the problem and really solving this problem more than just throwing a number at them.
That's why me doing an hour worth of comparables and getting reports and
doesn't bring any value.
It doesn't, because at the end of the day, I need to make sure that I am the problem solver for that seller. And I know that the bigger the problem or the better solution provider that I am, the deeper the discount I'm going to get. So it doesn't matter.
So do you think that's a mistake that you see a lot of people doing? Like maybe bringing stuff to the table that don't really, bring up the needle, like such as bringing reports or talking a lot about themselves and how great their company are, when it's really about the seller and not about yourself, right?
100%. And so not too many people understand that in the business. It's all like numbers and, hey, tell me about the property and how much do you want for it? That's it.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they don't get the properties discounted enough. And I coach a lot of different people and I listen to a lot of calls, right? And then I say, well, you didn't ask X, Y, and Z. So how do you know if it's even a deal that you should spend time analyzing and making an offer on? It's a lot of time wasting, or a lot of, I guess, how do I put it? I don't want to insult anybody, but just very beginner move where you think you're getting a good deal, and then you're putting it out to the market to talk to an investor and say, hey, I got you a deal. And then they review it and they tell you that deal shit. And you wonder why. You're like, oh, I don't understand. I'm getting it cheaper than X, Y, and Z value, right? And it's because you didn't really figure out enough with the homeowner to get it in that deep discounted price that you needed to. You're just trying to stick mud on the wall and seeing what stick type of an approach. And that never really works. That's not how you create like big spreads, right? I don't do this business to make the $5,000 anymore.
Yeah. And I feel that's the main difference between, I do a lot of discovery call these days with people that do, 2-3 deals a month, and some other people that do 10-15 deals a month. And what I see really on their skill set is that the people doing 10-15 deals a month, I figure out what you talk about. The one at 2-3 deals a month, usually they just grab the low-hanging fruit, meaning that they have enough to keep the wheel spinning. They do a lot of cold calling, a lot of lead generation. So they get a lot of conversation. They throw offers at people, and like they're going to have 1 or 2 here and there that are going to stick. Yeah. But they're really wasting a lot of money, and that's my job to show them, the cost of missed opportunity, because really just looking at their CRM, there's so many deals in the pipeline, but just because they don't have the right skill set, they just, missed on.
They go to waste. And marketing dollars are so like precious in the business.
It is precious, and I have a number for you, man, that really blow my mind that I discovered recently. You know that the real estate industry as a whole spend 10 billions a year, billions with a B,
I can imagine.
in marketing, in online marketing. 5 billions of it, half of it, go to waste because they never get called. And I'm not even talking about the rest of the 5 billion that probably get called one time or two times, when we both know that you need 8 to 10 touch on a lead minimum to really convert it.
Absolutely.
Isn't it crazy?
It's
just
insane.
5 billion being flushed every year.
And I know that number is true because that's why my coaching business exists and why I'm, pretty successful at helping entrepreneurs figure that out and how to change that in their organization, because you're busy doing busy work and you're trying to just do whatever you can with the deals that are coming through. And there's always like a bottleneck, and it's one of the reasons why you don't see scalability. And you're trying to figure out how can I be more profitable, is a lot of times is that process. They just don't understand it, right? They don't monitor that. Like it takes a lot of discipline to run an operation like that, right? Like you need to really understand your numbers, how much money you're spending, how much, what are the conversion rates, how many times they're being dialed, how, like what kind of exit strategies do you have, how many leads per contract, how many contact per contract, how many contracts are being sent to get the one contract. Like it can get pretty deep, and the deeper that you get, the more you really understand your business, and then it becomes a lot more predictable and profitable. But it takes that discipline and those measurements, those metrics, for you to really take your business to the next level and not leave so much meat on the bone, right? Because that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, it always impressed me to see that how many companies actually don't track their KPI at all. And even some big one, I'm not going to throw any names here, but even some big ones that I've seen here in Florida, for example, have this sophisticated Salesforce platform, but they don't track their KPI at all. And I'm just like, it's such, missing so many opportunities and wasting marketing dollar, because what you track grows. So if you don't track your number, or you're going to grow your business.
But I think it's because number one, a lot of people they're not really skilled in like the actual business aspect of it, like P&Ls and understanding that. And again, that discipline of making sure you're looking at every number and being kind of stingy with your CRM and micromanaging and kind of checking it. I don't think that you want to micromanage, but you need to understand how to measure it, where to measure it, how to create that key performance indicator that's going to let you know if your business is healthy or not.
For sure.
And this happened to us when we first started. Man, we would spend I think 1 year we spent, it was embarrassing. I think we spent somewhere around $700,000 to make a mill. And it didn't make any sense.
I'm not surprised. I see that every day. And I think we're coming to another topic of the conversation where it's, scale is a good thing. Yeah. But you have to be careful in the way you scale, because I've seen so many companies here in the wholesaling industry, scaling and showing, big numbers of, we do 200 deals a year. But then when I look at their bottom line, sure, we have a big gross assignment fee, but the bottom line is very little, if they're making anything, because I see some guys losing $300,000 a month. Right. So it's really, sometimes you have this balance to find. And I think we've all been there at some point. I've been there. I've been scaling too much and too fast, to the point where I was probably making more money making 10 deals all by myself and doing 20 with a team. So that's one of the things that you definitely need to watch for. Yeah,
100%. But again, I'm happy for that situation because it keeps my business alive.
Of course,
people hire me to figure that out.
It does. The KPI thing, I feel like there's also another component, is because most wholesaling company, I don't have the correct numbers on that, but I would assume that more than half of the wholesale company right now have been created in the last 2 years, because of YouTube, social media, all of that. And so the last 2 years have been pretty incredible for real estate. I mean, you've seen since COVID, the price exploding all over the place. Even people who are looking at the contract way too high found a way to display it, because we've known like a period of time where you could just send an email blast and you would have 10 offers on the table. So I think even bad wholesalers have been able to build good operation in the last 2 years, but I feel in the last 6 months, now we're kind of like leveling the playing field. And you can really see the difference between the one that did their homework, track their KPI, grow the right way, and invested in their coaching and training their team, and the one that were just, having a little bit of luck, being there at the right time.
I told you, the market cycle will make or break you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand what side of the market cycle you're in so that you can do the business forward, right? Like you have the future projection. Because you're absolutely right. During COVID, at least the first month, I didn't stop my operation, but we definitely scaled back. We were like, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Like people can't leave their house. I don't know how many people really can sell, even if they want to sell right now. Like everything came to sort of a halt per se. We capitalized on that time. We still did marketing. What we did, which was, I think, a blessing, was that we would extend the closing because of the uncertainty, right? 60, 90, 120 days. So we piled up our system with a bunch of contracts that we didn't really have to execute for almost 6 months, right? But that's just kind of like skill and forward thinking. Sure. We didn't know how it was going to play out. Thus the reason why we held it. But unfortunately, in the last several years, yes, wholesaling, real estate, even for fix and flippers and buy and holders and people that love to do Airbnb and all that stuff, right? They've created bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
Those are easy to create. They're hard to break.
Sure.
Right? Not only the people in the industry create bad habits, but also obviously it damaged our market with the homeowners, because now they all think they can get above market value, sight unseen. You know what I mean? Like all cash. Who cares? The roof is gone. We'll still pay you over. And they're still riding that wave, right? Because the market, or the retail market, is the last one to understand market cycle.
For sure.
Right? And so now there's going to be a ginormous adjustment. So a lot of the companies that did come up in the last several years, let's see how they will survive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally follow you on that. I think when the market change, and obviously it's a market cycle, it goes up and down all the time. And when the market change, between the time the retail market, between the time the cash buyers and the professional buyers notice it and the time it goes to the retail market, there's a good 6-month period. So your cash buyers are going to start being way more careful and lowering their offers way before the retail market is ready to actually take a discount on their asking price. So we're right in it right now. We're right in this period where you have this kind of like weird situation between the seller who's going to tell you, oh yeah, but my neighbor across the street just sold for 2 times this price. And your cash buyer was going to be like, no, I'm paying your wholesale price. And I've seen that a lot, like in the recent month, in the last 2-3 months, I've seen some wholesale company actually putting out there the price of their contract. Like, hey, I look at this house at 100,000. And then depending on the feedback of the buyer, they would go back to the seller and try to get some money out of it.
That's not bad at all.
That's not bad at all, because that's the only way. Like when you're in a period like this, you need to figure out, okay, what's the real price? And who can give you the real price? Well, the market can, your buyers can. So I think it's actually a very good strategy. But I've seen a lot of people doing that lately, which is a change because they're used to, put any price out there and receiving offers.
Wow, that's a really great technique. The only caveat to that is that, of course, sometimes we're not in the most ethical region. And, a lot of folks may want to go behind you and...
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's a great strategy because now you know what the market would actually pay.
Mhm.
And now you can go again, like just like my beginning story, right? Like I believed that he was going to close on the deal. So I did the deal.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So now I can go back to the homeowner and say, look, there's no way in God's green earth that we can pay $100K for this property. All of my partners came back at 80 grand.
Mm.
With confidence. Now it's like, oh, maybe, I don't know. No, $80,000 gets this done and we can close in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like that strategy. That's actually really
It makes
cool.
sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going back to the whole ethical point, it's obviously something that happened a lot to us. It happened to a lot of people that once you start putting yourself out there and your company out there and your marketing to cash buyers, some people are going to start taking your deals. It happened to us when we started to use Investor Lift because we're blasting to a lot of buyers. Automatically, some people would see, the advertising, and instead of spending the money on marketing, they would just go direct to the seller and being like, hey, I can offer you more than this guy. Try to back off. So
it's free marketing.
It's free marketing, basically. So what has been our answer to that is we had this clause in our contract that we could file a memo on every contract. So we did that. Now, we did it in a very ethical way because it's written in our contract and we have the right to do that. And if we cannot perform, we would waive our memo. Now, I think it might create some issues in the future because I've seen a lot of wholesalers forgetting to pull back the memo when they cancel the contract.
Right.
And we both know that especially when you're wholesaling virtually, you might cancel like a good 30%, 40% of your contract.
Right.
If you have 30-40% of the wholesale inventory that file memo and doesn't take it out, I think in a few years, it's going to become a very big issue because you're going to have to, in order to close your deal, go chase those 2-3 other wholesalers that, forget to pull their memos. So that
is challenging. But the good thing is, in case you didn't know, those memos are only good for 2 years.
Oh, really? Yeah. But you still need to do a quiet title action.
Well, theoretically, if you have the right closing attorney, it's a wash, because it's known and void if you didn't exercise it. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. So
let me know the story. Let me know the story.
So I'll tell you the story.
Yeah.
It was a house in Hollywood, Florida. Nice Spanish lady. I sat with her for an hour. It's something I don't do. Like, I don't really visit people. Again, 5% of my entire career have I visited people, right, in their home. This one required it. Spanish lady, older lady. It's probably the only way that she would sign. My office is here in Broward, so it wasn't like I had to drive to Jupiter, right? So I sit down with her for an hour. She basically adopts me. She says, you're my grandson and this, that, and the other. And I love you. You're so great and so patient. And I'll sign. She signs to sell me the property. But I'm going to need a month because I'm going to go travel. And she had stuff everywhere. It was like little collectible stuff. It wasn't like a hoarder house.
Okay.
But it was like a lot of collectible stuff everywhere. So she would need to pack and whatever. So sure, no problem. We'll give you, a month to get that done. She disappears on me. She travels to wherever. I'm like blowing her up. I'm like, we got to close because I found the buyer literally the next day. Literally. As a matter of fact, I signed the contract. We made a phone call. The guy's like, can we go see it the next day? So we saw it the next day. He's like, yeah, I'll take it. Right. So I'm like, oh, easy deal. Great. My grandmother sold me a house and I'm ready to go. She ghosts me. I put the memorandum. And then she comes back like about 2 months later. Oh, I was traveling and this, and gives me the whole story, right, about whatever. I'm like, all right, well, we're going to buy the house. They're like, no, I can't sell my house. I'm like, what you mean you can't sell your house? You told me you needed to sell the house. We went through the whole process. And she's like, no, I can't sell you the house. So, of course, we left it alone because we were like, well, she probably got a better offer.
Sure.
It's because I have my memorandum. They're going to call me and then we'll figure it out. Dude, no calls for 2 years. 2 years later, we get a phone call about such and such property from an attorney. The attorney basically asked me for my contract. So I sent them the copy of the contract showing that I had equitable interest. And then he gave me the good news. He says, well, this contract was signed on May 2000, call it. And this is 2022. And so we're going to wash our ass
Wow.
with the memorandum because they call it the statutes of limitation is 2 years on a memorandum. And so
That's interesting. I'm just not sure though. Like, that title companies are sometimes very careful with liability. So I don't know I think most title company will still want to go through the quiet title action, but probably like a skilled attorney would be able to close without it.
And that's what happened to us. It was a skilled attorney.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I got my bulldog attorney on it as well, but statutes of limitations got us.
That's interesting. I actually last year I got paid on like 4 or 5 of those memorandum that I put out there. Those are great because they're surprises. You completely forgot about that. You pay the attorney and that's it. And
I put it in my pipeline, right? As a residual.
It's a retirement
fund. Yeah. So those are good. But yes, absolutely. I think that definitely will be an issue. Because not too many people know how to navigate through that. I feel like I was blessed to do real estate in South Florida, just because, I don't know why they say that, but we're like number 1 fraud capital of the world.
I think Miami is a place in the U.S. where there is the most title fraud.
Yeah, for sure. I have a title company that they are phenomenal, and this is the only county that they do not do business in. The only one in the entire state of Florida because of that. Now, what is the upside to that? The upside is that you become very, very sharp. And in this game, although wholesaling is it's a simple business. You purchase, you put something on the contract at one price, you arbitrage it for another price. Put it on the contract for 100. You found the buyer for 110. You made $10,000. Done. Easy business, right? But there are some intricacies and things that will help you as a professional in the industry that will just allow you to like really overcome so many obstacles with the knowledge, right? And number 1, you'll get better discounts on the deal, right? Because explaining these type of things to a homeowner, they get scared as heck. They don't want to deal with it. And I'll give you an example in a minute. It allows you to navigate through the whole title stuff. Like if you have a title company that maybe the buyer wants to use and you come up with these type of situations that you've gone through before because they're so maybe complicated and you understand these rules, regulations, limitations, it allows you to say, well, no, they are absolutely wrong. We can't close this deal because all we have to do is X, Y, and Z. So the more that you understand the industry or the product, right, that you're involved in, man, the more skilled you get, the better negotiator you will be, and the more bigger deals you're going to close.
Absolutely. And I think it gets back to, like with this whole nationwide wholesaling model, I was actually surprised in some states, we did some transaction in some very small city in random states. And some of them even told me, no, wholesaling is illegal. Well, we both know that it's not, but I had to teach them how to do it. And then once I thought we had partners in all state and everybody understood wholesaling, I decided to venture into creative financing, which creates another level of complexity. And now most title company, self-financing, most title company understand it, but the sub two is very, very complicated. Right. And so you have to find like a title company that is already willing to, go through with it because it's not that easy to manage. But yeah, absolutely. So man, let me ask you, because I think we could talk about this wholesaling and all of that for hours and hours, but I want to talk about, the way you transition from after doing all those real estate transactions, and you're still doing some real estate transaction to this day. But at some point in your career, you're like, okay, I amass this amount of knowledge in sales, this expertise, this skill set, and now I'm going to go teach that to other people that might just getting started in wholesaling or might already have an operation, but they need to, build up because of what we were saying, because of missed opportunity, because they don't have this skill set yet. So can you explain to me a little bit more about this transition? Like what makes you want to, transition from actively wholesaling to coaching?
Yeah, I mean, dude, when you do X amount of deals, it's all like the money's great, and all, but there's always more to the business. And so I felt like I had a lot more potential. I had a lot more to give. Talking to sellers all day wasn't the rest of my life, right? And
Did you get tired of it?
I did.
Yeah.
The honest truth is that I got burnt out. It's a lot because I would love to explain to your audience the whole process, because I do have a process and a system and an understanding, a very deep understanding as to what makes an amazing top tier, right, grade A, world class acquisition person,
Mm-hmm.
and it's work constantly. And so needed to branch out of that. I mean, we had acquisition people and stuff like that, but I also wanted to do bigger deals, and I wanted to go more broad in that space, but didn't want to start a whole new business.
When you say bigger deals, are we talking like commercial or?
Yeah, like multifamily, commercial, just bigger pops. Do a flip, a wholesale, or flip $1 million plus property and that kind of stuff, right? And
do you feel there is a setting to wholesaling? Do you think like I talk a lot about that, and that we had a similar experience, and I transitioned out of wholesaling as well, because I realized at some point that there's never going to be $100 million wholesaling company. I feel like it's you have a cap on this business.
It's capped somewhere between, from the industry folks that I'm involved in, mastermind, done a lot of self-development and investment in my knowledge, dealing with very, very big players. We're looking at like 3 million if you're really like top tier operator, to maybe at most $5 million.
Yeah.
At most $5 million.
But so the prime is the overhead that you need to get there. So it's always the same thing. I feel like you can run up to 10 deals a month, really. And I talk in number of deals, which I shouldn't, but it's a scale. Up to 10 deals a month, I think you can run a very profitable operation with approximately a 40% profit margin. Once you grow over that, your profit margin shrinks.
Yeah, it's a diminishing return.
Yeah,
of course, and it takes a really strategic operator to navigate through those numbers and figure out how to keep that same margin while increasing marketing, while increasing sales. And it's a challenge, especially in our business, right? Because it's not in our niche, it's not $1 trillion, market cap. It's probably 100 million at most. So from 100 million to $1 trillion, it's a big gap.
Yeah. And it takes time to come to this realization. And I think like it stick to me like probably last year when I realized that you have some very large, obviously commercial real estate investment company, syndication, all of that. I mean, you have like even Grant Cardone amassed like more than $1 billion of real estate. You have some very large coaching business, and talking about Tony Robbins, so those guys. You have some very large marketing company like Gary Vee, for example, with VaynerMedia. Wholesaling company are unfortunately capped at some point, which you can still like have a very good runway, because when we're talking about 3 to 5 million, it's a pretty good industry to be. But I want to highlight that there is a value, in my opinion, of real estate wholesaling is being able to source off-market properties. And I think that's where most people messed up, is like, they want to kind of like put a label on it. I'm a wholesaler. I'm a flipper. No, you're a real estate investor. You should find off-market properties. And then once you get the deal, decide of the exit strategy. But most of all, your strategy should be to hold on as many rentals as possible. And that's where a lot of people screw up. And that's where I personally screw up, And like almost 15 years in real estate, it took me very late to start to accumulate some rentals.
Me too. Yeah. If I can give any sound advice to anyone that's jumping into like wholesale real estate, is do everything in your power to keep every 5th deal. Yeah. 1 out of 5 deals you keep.
That's funny, because I have exactly the same number. I have exactly the same number in mind. Yeah. And I think you need this kind of rigor. You need to really like stick to it, have this model in mind, and put aside. And it's not easy sometimes because we get used of this lifestyle,
of course,
that comes with wholesaling. But if you can put aside this money and, looking back at it, I told that recently, I see now some apartments, some condominiums that I flipped in West Palm Beach. Back in 2015, I was the most happy. I thought when I was making $20K on a wholesale deal or on a flip, I thought I was like, top of the world. This day, the same condominiums are probably worth 3 times what I sold them for.
Right.
So by taking like the short gain, I actually missed out on a big opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so, I think that's a key takeaway. Like, take some chips out of the table, like start to invest and build your portfolio over time.
I'll tell you, when I saw COVID hit and I said, oh my God, I don't have enough properties to maintain my lifestyle, right? To cover a lot of my overhead and live my lifestyle. Because you don't have anything residual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if rents were not being paid, well, you have an asset that you can offload or refi, right? Equity line of credit, and you have cash. But when you wholesale, well, you got nothing. You can't sell your wholesale company. Ain't nobody buying a wholesale company. It's not sellable.
It's not sellable because it depends too much on the individual. Usually you have a strong visionary that create a wholesale business. If you take this person out of the company, there's no business anymore.
The data's not yours. The softwares are not yours. Nothing is the wholesale companies, right? Other than the skill set and the people that are working it.
Absolutely.
Other than that, then you really don't have a business. I can't, shut it down. I can't walk away from the business and it just continue to produce. Obviously you could be an operator of that business and walk away, but it's still your business. You can't sell it. You know what I mean? No one's going to say, oh yeah, this is a $20 million, evaluated company. Like, it's not happening.
No. And it's interesting because the largest wholesale company here in the US, I learned that very recently. I wasn't aware of that, but I think we're doing like more than 100 properties per month. And but we're actually making money on the hard money lending more than on the wholesaling.
Of course.
So we're actually a bank. We're not really a wholesaler anymore.
Absolutely. That's where the money is going in right now in wholesaling in this market is, the people that can still lend, right? They're safe, because if you are very strict on your underwriting as a lender, well, you're basically securing those assets at like 70 cents on a dollar. So even if the market doesn't do so well, you still have all of your money in there and then
exactly.
some. You know what I mean? So that's a great, obviously that's a great business.
It's a great business to be in. I know a guy that had a very large portfolio in the Midwest, sold everything, about 300 houses a few years ago. He has a very interesting business, and because you've been in the insurance field, you're going to follow me on that. He actually, so he sold his portfolio, he took the money, and he put it in a whole life insurance policy. And now he borrowed against his whole life insurance policy, and he lent this money to flippers.
His cost is nothing on
His cost is nothing. He's getting approximately, like, don't put me on that, but I think last time I checked mine, I was getting like a 6% return. I think the cost to borrow back is like 4%. Right. And then you lend it back at what, 12% plus the points.
And hard, and you aiming for the 7 figures. Hear from the experts who know how to deliver success stories, plenty advice. Time for you to rise. REI Tribe, yeah. Real estate agents to investors. All my entrepreneurs, time for you to check this. Yoann Dorat, he's getting it started, man. From running businesses to digital marketing. Hey, REI Tribe. REI Tribe. Let's go.